How's it going, guys? I'm here to talk about Earthworm Jim 2. That's right, I'm back with another retrospective, and I already did a retrospective on the first Earthworm Jim game, which is one of my favorite games of all time, so you should go check that one out as well. But this is the sequel to one of my favorite games of all time. So is this game better? Is it just as good? Is it worse? Well, you have to keep watching to find out. I hope you all enjoy the retrospective, guys. Earthworm Jim 2 may be the best sequel to any video game ever. Well, there is Sonic 2, Zelda 2, Super Mario Bros. 2. In fact, there's many great video games with a 2 in the title, and sequels that followed up on the fun of the inaugural series and these classic series. But those games would have many sequels and would have new entries every couple of years. But Earthworm Jim was a series that, while popular, didn't have the same luxury of having year after year of sequels. So with that in mind, a game like Earthworm Jim 2 holds so much more of a special, an extremely special place in my heart. The limited number of Earthworm Jim games out there makes Jim's second outing all the more original and special for that very reason. Plus, I don't think there's ever been a more experimental sequel with so much variety and with a dedicated desire to be unique to not only other video games on the market, but to the original game, but by still keeping the spirit, charm, and personality of what made that first game the unforgettable classic that it still is to this very day. Plus, it has yet another astounding classic soundtrack composed by the returning Tommy Tallarico. The music in this game, much like the first, is just an incredible work of art. This is without a doubt one of my favorite video game soundtracks of all time. Earthworm Jim 2 came out at a time when Earthworm Jim was at its peak as a franchise. There was now an animated series on the super popular Kids WB, an action figure line already out, and with another game, the series was experiencing quite a bit of success. I was in complete ecstasy at the time, enjoying my favorite video game franchises going full force as the Earthworm Jim and Sonic the Hedgehog franchises were showering me with so much cool stuff and content to consume. This truly was an amazing childhood experience. So we actually get a little bit of story as we fire up the game, which is a big departure from the first game as we were just dropped into the game with no explanation whatsoever. Earthworm Jim is playing his accordion to serenade Princess What's-Her-Name. How is this chick forgiving Jim after leaving her to drown in the sea of goop and stealing her crown? Well, you know what they say about worms with long heads, right? Well, obviously you know the answer. Jim is tapped on the shoulder, and as he's distracted, yoink, the princess is snatched away by the evil Psycho. And if you read up on the story in the instructions, Psycho intends to marry her so he can become the ruler of the galaxy. So of course Jim's headed off to save her once more. So like I did for my first Earthworm Jim retrospective, let's go through the game level by level as we talk about all the nuances, changes, similarities, and gameplay details that make Earthworm Jim 2 the unique experience that it is. We start off with Anything But Tangerines, which is a name of a level you just can't forget. This is one of many summer homes of the original game's villains, this one belonging to Bob the Goldfish, which is one of the most straightforward levels in the game. But don't worry, there's still plenty of variety to be had. The first thing you'll notice is this hilarious running in place idle animation and running animation of Jim, and I think it's superior as it plays to Jim's more playful side and less badass than the ones found in the first game. You'll start off by firing your plasma blaster at these flying octopuses, bringing us back to the familiar gameplay of the first game. But what's that up there? Oh, an extra life? I think this little homage to the level of the first game, New Junk City, where there was an out-of-reach extra life beneath the ground you stood upon as soon as you entered the level, but this time it's up in the air, and you'll need to use your new replacement for the helicopter head move, the Snot Swing. And to tell you the truth, this move is better, and it is implemented way more than the helicopter. Plus, it also replaces using the head whip to swing. The head whip is still there, but feels less useful as a result. Getting the extra life in the beginning can be pretty tricky, and the rhythm needed to perform successful swings takes a lot of getting used to. Even after playing this game so many times, I still have to do this a few times before snatching that extra life. You may even come across the Manta Shield, which is a secret move that keeps you invincible for a few seconds, but to tell you the truth, I always forget about this move. But it is kinda cool, and I like the way Jim calls the name of the move out when he performs it. If you explore, you'll come across new guns and even 4 collectible signs that are used for the password system, which is a very unique concept. You'll actually have to collect your password instead of how it's done in most games by finishing the level and earning it. This is a real incentive to explore the levels thoroughly or be punished for a game over by having to explore certain levels again. Now the guns are plentiful, and you'll find the 3-finger gun, the homing gun, and the barn blaster, which is a screen clearing gun that oddly enough only appears in this level. You'll also come across the virtually useless bubble gun, which if you're playing the Genesis version of this game is basically a troll, because that version of the game does not have a button to switch weapons, but if you're like me and you're playing the SNES version, you can switch it out without being trolled. You'll also notice you now have the ability to pick up objects such as these pigs, which will be used to help you progress. This animation showing Jim struggling to lift the pigs and the fact you walk way slower and jump lower is a great example of the attention to detail and a great sense of physics, which was not really seen in video games at the time. Also, I really like how the stage is constructed, as you'll go from left to right, then from right to left, then back to the right at the end. So many games subscribe to the run to the right construct. Even the first level of the first game was guilty of that. And I'm so happy Shiny decided to make things feel different. You'll come across a teleporter that takes you to a small challenge where you must navigate several staircases using a chairlift to avoid grannies, which are raining down from somewhere. They're just basically falling from above. Complete it and you'll earn an extra life. As you find your way to the end of the level, you'll find Bob as Mortal Kombat style text flashes fight, and instead of just breaking his bowl like in the first game, you'll straight up devour the evil aquatic fiend. Lorenzo Soil. There's a film by the name of Lorenzo Soil, and I think that this stage is just a parody on that movie title, but instead of this being a stirring drama where Jim explores his inner soul, he instead must use a powered up plasma blaster to shoot through tons and tons of dirt, and I really like the physics, which just like lifting the pigs, feels ahead of its time as the landscape changes and slopes as you tunnel through this massive cavern, and there's a lot of room to explore. But much like down the tubes in the first game, we've got a timer. But instead of it being a race to catch our next breath of air, we must avoid being crushed by a crushing avalanche of boulders. You can use the soil to destroy the ant burrows and use it to reach higher ledges. The stage is constructed vertically, which brings back Intestinal Distress vibes as you must climb your way to victory. The boss is a new character, Pedro Pupa, a giant maggot riding a unicycle who would never go on to be seen in the series again. Puppy Love. This level is offered up in 3 separate parts and is sort of a replacement for Andy Asteroids in the first game, but is very different. You'll have to use a giant marshmallow to bounce your pal Peter Puppy's puppies who have been kidnapped by Psycho, and he's now throwing them out the barn window. And there's hundreds of them. Whoa, holy shit, Peter, bro, take it easy, man, slow down. How are you supporting all these kids? These levels will really put your reflexes to the test, and if you drop more than 4, you will get mauled by Peter as he transforms into his monstrous alter ego. You'll start off with only 3 rounds, but the next 2 iterations offer 4 rounds, and by the final installment, things get crazy as Psycho throws an insane amount of puppies. I really dig the background of this level, and in retrospect gives me Courage the Cowardly Dog vibes. In fact, this planet is even called Planet Nowhere. Go figure. I like this stage and all, but 3 iterations of it seems a bit much, and by the time I get to the 3rd installment, I'm always a bit sick of it. To win here, you will need to wait for Psycho to throw a bomb down, and from there bounce it over to Peter, who will then throw it back to Psycho, scoring a hit. This level is without a doubt a tribute to the Game & Watch game Fire, in which you would play as firemen bouncing people jumping out of a building into an ambulance. A bit of an obscure reference, but one I actually got at the time of the game's release because I once went to a summer camp as a kid and they had a computer that had the game Bouncing Babies, which was a rip-off PC version of the Game & Watch original. Villy people, much like Intestinal Distress from the first game, we are once again in an intestinal nightmare, this time the summer home of Dr. Duodenum, who is not present in this game, and I'm not even sure if he's still alive after exploding into a mound of slimy bile at his defeat in the first game. Instead, your main enemy will be the Villy that line the walls of this gigantic cavern, and you're disguised as a blind cave salamander who could fly through these narrow pathways, and I love how he's still holding onto the plasma blaster with his tiny hands. You will also want to collect all the mealworms spread throughout the level, as you can later participate in one of the most unique and random game shows of all time. The answers are so random and nonsensical, you can't help but love this little touch of hilarity. Plus, adding to the minigame mayhem, you'll also get the opportunity to score some extra lives and continues by playing several rounds of this challengingly tricky memory game. Also, this level made me fall in love with Beethoven and classical music, as Tommy Tallarico gives us a fantastic rendition of the Moonlight Sonata. I am forever indebted to this musical master for this introduction to classical classics and this overall amazingly tremendous soundtrack. The Flying King. The Pocket Rocket finally gets its own full-fledged level instead of just being used to race in the minigame and the asteroids levels from the first game. The idea of this level is to take a hot air balloon filled with explosive, conveniently labeled bomb to the end of the level to defeat Major Mucus, who returns from the first game. This level can be pretty tricky if you decide to take the bomb balloon along for the ride right from the start, as you will have a hell of a time. You will have access to the Pocket Rocket's weapon systems, and you might accidentally blow up the bomb as you fight against the enemies that are littered throughout the stage. The best strategy here is to leave the bomb behind and clear out the enemies and go back for it once you're done. It's an interestingly designed level, and come to think of it, this is sort of a throwback to For Pete's Sake in the first game, where you had to take Peter Puppy to the end of the stage because the Flying King is technically an escort mission of sorts. I really like the look of the mucus on the ground as you get closer to Major Mucus. It looks very detailed here, and the water and landscape looks very crisp and clean. And the overall isometric viewpoint gave us a new visual perspective on the Earthworm Jim world and offered more experimentation as we gazed into the future of possible full-on 3D graphics, which we would end up seeing in Earthworm Jim 3D 4 years later. Utterly abducted. After all the cow hijinks in the first game, the cows finally get their time in the spotlight, as once again we are involved in an escort mission, as you must take a collection of cows to their respective barns. They'll pop out of these little Venus flytrap things as if they were being sprouted as fruit, which is super weird. The only thing I always found frustrating about this stage is that you must do the cows in a specific order, and if you approach the plants out of order, you just won't get the cow to pop out. Not sure why they made it this way, but I would have liked a bit more freedom here. If you put a cow down for too long to climb up onto a ledge or to fight an enemy, a UFO will come down and try to abduct the cow in a tractor beam, hence the name of the stage. Another added challenge is that some of these cows are laced with dynamite, and if you don't dunk them in these massive bathtubs in time, it'll result in an explosive one-hit kill. Inflated head. If you look at the manual, it appears this level was supposed to originally follow the Villy people and also went by the name Circus of Scars. Jim will use helium dispensers to fill his head so he can float to the top of the level. I really like the mixture of level designs because just like Lorenzo Soil, this is another vertically designed level, and you must contend with Evil the Cat as he tries to pop your top with spitballs and later will use his tail as a helicopter to try try and shred your inflated head, sending you plummeting to the closest platform below. This can be pretty tricky with all the obstacles in your path, even though you can tell where evil will come down from. I really like this idea of how Evil the Cat is the only enemy in the game, and it's sort of like a prolonged boss fight as he menaces you throughout the level even if you don't directly fight him. It's a relatively short stage, and while it's not bad, it's nowhere near as good as What the Heck from the first game. ISO 9000. This is a planet made up of paperwork, and the file cabinets can be a real pain if you don't know how to deal with them. Don't try to jump over them, and if they corner you, you can be crushed in a one-hit kill. The trick is to run away from it, not jump, and the papers on the floor will fly up and the file cabinet will stop for a moment to suck them into its drawers, which you can use to jump over it. Whoa, and are these gimps? Wow, that's adult to say the least. The manual says they're lawyers, but it appears these attorneys are starved for some much-needed kink. The background on the stage is what really steals the show for me. Just a beautifully designed moving background with the paperwork flying by. At the end, you'll teleport to this room where you must use this foot sticking out of a wardrobe to trip a door with legs so you may enter it and escape before a file cabinet comes out to get you. Wow, that sounds super weird saying that, and that's exactly the point. Level 8. It's hard to pick a favorite level, but this very well may be my favorite stage because, come on, it's a level designed around food, and we have seen stuff like this since, such as in Sonic Colors with Sweet Mountain, but I like this more because the floor is literally bacon. How can it get any better than that? You jump on stakes, shoot eggs so they drop their yolk, and you can use it to jump on so you won't hurt yourself on the stovetops. If you explore enough, you'll even find a secret room number 37, which is filled with forks that look to skew Jim, and it's pretty damn challenging to say the least. As you arrive at the end of the stage, you'll confront a new villain, Flamin' Yawn, who will battle you atop a giant pizza, and you must evade Yawn by using the pepperoni as stepping stones. Talk about a visual. See Jim run, run, Jim run. This stage is a race to the end of the level with Psychro, much like how you race them in Andy Asteroids, and you must stop the marriage from taking place, and there is very little room for mistakes. And if you can't get enough distance between yourself and him, it's going to be a big problem. If you're too slow, you'll get temporarily locked in one of these rooms with these giant balls, and after contending with this, you're not very likely to catch up with Psychro again. These spinning blades are also a huge problem, especially the one that's slightly elevated. I suggest saving the Mega Plasma gun for this. You can also use these falling orbs to gain a sudden boost of speed that will rocket you forward, but careful that it doesn't send you down a chasm below. If you don't make it in time, Psychro will turn on an electrical barrier and you'll instantly die, but if you beat him, the day is saved and the princess is once again yours, and you'll be treated to this astoundingly funny ending where it's revealed that you were all just cows all along. So where was the real Jim during all of this, or was Jim always a cow even in the first game? This ending is sure to make your brain explode. Okay, so there you have it, guys. In closing, I will say that it is very hard to decide if Earthworm Jim 1 or 2 is better, but 2 just manages to edge it out with its sheer level of variety. I do find it's unusual that Professor Monkey for a Head did not make his return, especially when he turned out to be such a major villain in the cartoon, and he escaped in the first game, so it would have been perfect for him to make his return, but Earthworm Jim 2 is fine as it is, and the game is pure art, and its design is masterful. It took creativity and experimentation to an all-new plateau, and the developers were not afraid to take chances and change around many aspects seen in the first game, and thankfully most of them turned out fun and inventive, if not bizarre. Plus, can I mention the music again? Oh my god, the music in this game is just on such a high level of amazing. But I digress. Anyway guys, thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed the retrospective. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell so you get all the notifications when I post all my new videos. I want to thank all my patrons for your continued support. And thanks again guys. I'll see you next time.